Currently, 1 in 5 people in the UK say they have been involved in an extramarital affair. While the statistics used to be dominated by men, now it's pretty even. 20% of men and 19% of women say that they have cheated on a partner at some point in their lives. So, can a relationship recover from these kinds of things? Can you accept someone again if you have been so badly hurt by them? If they were the person you thought you could trust and it turned out that they were deceiving you? Is it possible to rebuild? Well, that's what this episode is all about. From battles over bank balances to wars over the cutlery drawer, domestic life can be a minefield. Whether you're facing relationship-ending hurdles or you just need a bit more fun, Rewiring Love delivers the clinical tools of a couples therapist straight to your ears. Let's smooth out your journey. Hi, I'm Naomi, and this is Rewiring Love. It's so good to have you here. If you are a brand new listener to this podcast, or if maybe you've been here for a while, this space is for you and your relationship. And I wonder if you could do me a favor. If you find what you hear in these episodes to be useful, could you subscribe and hit the thumbs up button? It really means a lot to me to have engagement from my listeners, and also it helps this content get to the people who really need to hear it. So welcome back. This is a second episode in a mini series that I'm doing on affair recovery. Last time on the podcast, we looked at the initial impact of an affair on a relationship. What do you do in those first few moments, hours, or those first couple of days when the bomb goes off in your life and you find that what you thought to be true wasn't true, who you thought you could trust, you can't, and there is somebody out there who has been cheating on your partner and you without you knowing. And we looked last time at what are the things you need to hold on to, 4 key decisions to make in that first 48 hours. And I introduced you to a couple who will be returning to in this episode, a couple who I worked with in my practice. So if you haven't heard part 1 of this mini series, you might want to go right back there and start there listening, because what happens today is really going to follow on from that. Last episode, I shared a hopeful statistic, because if you look across all of the research, most people don't think that their relationship could survive infidelity. And yet 60% on average of people go on to recover their relationship after an affair. If you take those statistics for the people who have been working with a couples counselor or a marriage advisor to get professional support, the number goes up to between 70 and 75%. So surprisingly, many people do take the road to recovery, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you will or you can, or even that you would want to. In these episodes here, I'm giving you a roadmap for what recovery could look like, what it looks like in my therapy clinic as a couples counselor. And I'm taking you through the story of 2 people who tried to recover and what happened to them. Names and details have obviously been changed, but I invite you to learn from the work that we did and understand that however far you get on a journey of recovery, at whatever time you decide to embark on one, there are signposts you can follow. There's trails marked out and there's a direction you can take. So I'm going to provide you with that direction. And I thought the most helpful way to do this as we look at the ongoing work of an affair recovery process is to talk to you about 3 of the biggest pitfalls, or the most common pitfalls, that I see couples getting stuck in when they're attempting to work together to reestablish a relationship after cheating or infidelity has occurred. And these are traps that I would love for you not to get stuck in. So in learning about how they come about and what you can do to avoid them, this will equip you to get further on the road of recovery in your own relationship. So the first one then is the idea that apology is a one-time event versus a process. One way couples get stuck is that they see the moment of saying sorry more as a fessing up or a being found out than an ongoing need to establish a sense of safety and accountability for the harm that's been done. And a word that's really useful here is the word atonement, which means to make something right, rather than the idea of just a sorry, which can seem like a single conversation. True atonement is a process of demonstrating remorse over time. So we talked last time about the need for 100 honesty and transparency. If there is any deceit by the injuring partner in an affair recovery process, it severely hampers the couple's ability to get themselves on a good footing again. So an absolute priority and a prerogative is for everything to be on the table, for there to be complete transparency and 100% clarity about the truth. And this needs to happen and be reinforced time and time again, as many times as the injured or the betrayed partner needs to hear the words said. Appropriate remorse must be measured by the impact of the actions, not their intention. That's why I dislike the terms emotional affair or sexual affair, because it serves often to minimize what happens. So, well, it was only an emotional affair, we didn't actually have sex, or it was only sexual, it didn't mean anything to me. These focus more on the intent of the action rather than the impact of the partner. So they're really not of much use when it comes to understanding what has actually happened. That needs to be viewed in terms of how the betrayed partner felt, the impact on them, and what the consequences for them are in their lives and what they've been through. If you are the injuring partner, then your partner was in your care. They entrusted themselves to you to take care of, to look after, and to protect, and you failed them in that. To earn back the right to be trusted, you must take care of them in the specific way that they have been hurt. It doesn't matter how you view your actions, it matters how your partner views the impact of what has happened to them. So sorry will be on repeat in a continuous process of re-establishing a sense of safety and emotional security and trust in your ability to consistently look after them again where once you didn't look after them. Suppose you accidentally hit somebody with your car. You wouldn't stand over them and say, well, listen, I didn't mean to run into you, so why are you bleeding? And in the same way, you cannot judge what's happened to your relationship in the wake of an affair by your intent. You must judge it by what the impact is on your partner. We talked last time in episode 1 about what some of those impacts might be, and particularly the emotional destabilization and the PTSD symptoms. So in view of that, each moment of triggering or each moment of felt impact from the affair should be dealt with together, conjointly by the couple in a caring, sensitive way that prioritizes the needs of the injured partner. The injured partner should take a lead on what it means to reestablish safety and trust in the relationship. I know it's a really hard message to hear if you are the betraying partner in the dynamic. But listen, if you've been given a chance with your partner to make a new start and to make right what was wrong, then the price of admission is just a top level of patience and consistency. You have to non-defensively demonstrate your appropriate remorse on repeat. until the point where there are no more questions and the concerns have all been addressed. That's what it takes to really establish a sense of apology, full apology with accountability in the wake of an affair. Trap number 2 is when partners get stuck in the victim villain trap. And this was a big one for the couple that I worked with that I'm telling you about, Hamish and Faye. If the injured partner identifies too much with the role of victim, they might find it hard to require things from their partner and to reestablish a sense of order and the need for them to be looked after in the relationship. And if the injuring partner identifies too much with the role of villain, they may get stuck in shame withdrawal, where they only show up in as much as they need to be seen. They kind of view their partner as a detective or a prosecutor, and they might give the minimal needed in that situation rather than a full sense of accountability and ownership, because it's their role and it's their identity to make things right. It is sticky because affairs attack your sense of worth both ways. Whether you're the injured partner and you feel like, I'm just not worthy of love, I'm not special, I'm not chosen, and you find yourself with all your insecurities just being painfully brought to the surface, and the negativity and the criticism and rejection that you feel on repeat just makes you a victim of your circumstance. And the way that you might blame everything on your partner is going to reinforce that as well. So getting stuck in that victim trap, meaning that your sense of identity, the core sense of who you are, is kind of enmeshed with being a victim. And then for the partner who committed the offense and cheated on their partner, the identity of being the bad guy, of I don't deserve to be loved, what I've done is so awful, I can't believe I did that, how could I have made such a mess, and I will never be forgiven and I'll never get over this, reinforces that idea that you are by definition a bad person, not somebody who's done a bad thing. And at this point, it's really helpful, and often I discuss with my clients the difference between guilt and shame. I learned this from Brené Brown, the researcher, who says that guilt, by definition, is I did something bad, whereas shame is am something bad. And when we look at the data, guilt is positively correlated with growth, while shame is negatively correlated with growth, meaning that when you feel guilty for something, you tend to make adequate reparation. You tend to make things right in proportion to the guilt that you feel. But when you feel shame, it can overwhelm and submerge you and actually paralyze you from moving forward and making things good and taking care of what you've done. So it might be that for you, the support of a professional to help you avoid that identity trap and to keep you being able to witness yourself in the process. So see yourself from your strong sense of identity within your values, and that idea of I am a good person, I am worthy of love. Maybe something was done to me, or I did something wrong, but fundamentally I am good. It may be that professional support is needed for you to be able to recalibrate your sense of self, even in the midst of the chaos and the huge, massive, engulfing feelings that you have in the process of recovery. And then the final trap I want you to avoid is thinking that love is enough. If a couple perceives that once the confession's been made and forgiveness has been given, they can just go back to loving each other, is misguided. Love is not enough to get you through an affair recovery process. You're also going to need alignment, meaning coming together and working as a team on establishing the new identity that you are. And also accountability, holding yourself and each other accountable to the high standards that you are resetting for your relationship in place of the derogatory standards that got set through the affair. So it's probably obvious by now that what we're not talking about is a getting back to how you used to be together. The depth of betrayal that's felt in an affair or an episode of cheating is usually so catastrophic that what a couple needs is a fresh start and an idea that they are choosing themselves and each other again in the light of what's happened, knowing that this is something they need to integrate, work through, and be able to fully have as part of the story of who they are, not lock away in a cupboard and never mention again. There is no going back to the past, only the opportunity, if it's right for you and if that's what you want to do, to start again in the rubble of what got destroyed, building something even better maybe than you had before. And so to do that, a key skill for a couple rebuilding after an affair is agreements. And these should be specific, so you'll know when you've actually done them, and they should be related to the offense. I know that sounds obvious, but it isn't just, a nice romantic weekend away is going to make everything better. It's actually feeling good in the same place and when you're around the same reminders that used to make you feel really terrible in the wake of the affair. So some examples could be, if part of the affair was secret messages on a phone, then an agreement a couple would make is that you have access to my phone at any time. Here is my password. Even at 2 a.m, you can check my phone. It's freely open to you. It once wasn't. It was closed and contained secrets, but now it's consistently available for you to look at any point. Or if the affair involved going away and meeting an affair partner in secret away from the house, then a couple might agree no more trips away. They might cancel any plans they have to go away, or they might agree to always go away together. It's very disruptive to do the proper work of back to ground zero and building again, but it is the only way to actually recover and not just carry the affair around on your back like a heavy weight, taking it everywhere you go with you. And what's really important here is that the betrayed partner sets the agenda. It should be their requirements and what feels good to them and their needs for security and safety that drive the couple's agreements. The injured partner must have carte blanche on what they need in order to feel cherished again and to feel valued again and to feel safe and able to trust in this relationship again. Don't be afraid to write this stuff down, to actually record it somewhere and keep it somewhere where you can look at it, because you'll need to hold yourselves and each other accountable to this. So really good idea to establish what happens if I fail to check in or somebody forgets one of the agreements. How are we going to handle that so that it doesn't turn into a blazing row, but it also doesn't get forgotten either? You might agree, we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about the impact, there's going to be apologies made and forgiveness offered, and then we're going to tweak the agreement if it needs tweaking and re-establish it. So it's really clear that this is the expectation of the partnership in order for it to succeed in rebuilding trust for both people. What happens is the relationship moves out of the battlefield and into the laboratory, where you're experimenting with a new way of being together. It's not going to be perfect. You will make mistakes, but if you're committed to the process and you're seeing this not as a one-time event, sticking a plaster over something, but a whole healing process, then what the opportunity you have is to create something that is different, more meaningful for you, and responsive in a way that your old relationship wasn't. So I wanted to take you through my case study and to look at how Hamish and Faye, the couple that I worked with here in my clinic, managed to avoid these traps that I've just discussed and what the process was like for them. Just to recap from last time, Faye had begun a secret affair with a colleague that she worked with called Marcus. And initially, Hamish had discovered some messages on a work iPad. And then actually it was in my office that the whole thing had come out. So we were able to work on an immediate establishment of some stabilization and how the couple might approach safety going forward. And so a key part of their agreement was that Faye had to move departments at work. So she needed to be able to be away from Marcus to be blocked on her phone, and for Hamish to feel secure that there was no contact between them anymore. And Faye was really keen to complete that process. She also moved out of their room together to give Hamish some space. And Faye wanted to be free to be able to talk with Hamish every evening whenever he wanted to. And so the couple cleared their diary and found some childcare arrangements so that they could have time for enjoying themselves, but also time for the deep discussions that they knew were on the horizon for them. And Faye was really good at being patient. She would calmly go over the details with Hamish anytime that he had something come up for him, even if it was exactly the same conversation that they'd had before. She was patient and understanding and would just hold on to herself and Hamish in these conversations whenever he needed to talk. But we hit a plateau at some point because Hamish was really struggling to identify with what the abandonment meant to him, and he would go quiet and shut down a bit more in sessions, and so we weren't making as much progress. So I took the view of talking to Hamish about his desires in an attempt to reconnect him with that sense of identity. So this was really them getting stuck in the villain victim trap that I talked about before, that particularly for Hamish, he was freezing. He was kind of losing the connection with himself and just being overwhelmed by the task and the feelings and the just sense of alienation he had from his life as well as from Faye. And surprisingly for all of us, Hamish came back with a desire to go away on a retreat in the Highlands, to do a kind of men's only retreat. And so as a couple, they made that happen. And what happened on that retreat was a massive turning point, not just for him, but also for them as a couple. Because what came up, surprisingly, was the idea that Hamish had played it small as a child and in his family of origin because his dad was someone successful that he looked up to and didn't really feel that he could reach. He just wasn't very available as a dad. And so that left Hamish really playing small. And that's what had been repeated in their affair recovery journey at this point. When Hamish came back from the retreat, he had some new language and a new access to the feelings of abandonment that had come from that relationship that he developed with his dad, and were now also live in the mix of their experiences as a couple. And what this enabled them to do as well was Faye could see an aspect of Hamish's personality and identity that she hadn't seen before. And she really enjoyed not only him having new respect for himself in his own eyes, but her being able to have a rekindled respect and desire for him in her eyes too. It really was a beautiful turning point as they, through the difficulties that they were facing, found the courage to get in touch with and accept new parts of themselves that hadn't really been available in the same way before they went through the affair. Of course, to Hamish and Faye, none of this justified what Faye had done or in any way was made up for by the new kind of depth, the new connection they had as a couple. But it does just go to show that if you're able to have the courage to stay in the fire and to stay with the process, it has the ability to reorganize you in ways that perhaps were needed and you didn't really know how to get access to. And when I condense a story like Faye and Hamish's into just a few paragraphs here, it can seem like simple, obvious, like you just put one foot in front of the other. Of course, it was nothing like that for them actually being in the experience. And it took a while to reestablish these new awarenesses and to have the safety in their conflict to even be able to consider opening up like they did and really getting in touch with desires. But I hope that it's given you one way to see, even though nothing about their story resonates with yours or is similar in any way, it's given you one way to see how working through these traps that I've mentioned and the kind of stuck places that couples often find themselves led to something really beautiful in the rubble of what was a very difficult situation. So just to recap then what we've talked about today as we wrap up this episode of the Rewiring Love podcast. So we've talked about how apology is not a one-time event, but the ability to sustain with patience and non-defensive, taking accountability and demonstrating appropriate remorse for what you did. We talked about how the villain and victim trap can stick to our identity and can really throttle back our ability to bear witness to our own process and to contain a sense of being good enough and being loved, even while we're dealing with the very difficult and distressing result of what we did or was done to us. And then lastly, the idea that it's not enough to just vaguely love each other or to have hope that you can be strong enough for each other. What is required is very specific agreements, even ones that are crafted and written down, and you have a therapist hold you accountable to following through on them. Building trust takes time. It's like building a wall, one brick after the other, all resting on top of each other, where something solid needs to be constructed in the place that the earth moved. And that's done really patiently and with one step at a time. So I hope these ideas have given you a clearer sense of what that road might look like if you decided to embark on recovering your relationship in the wake of an affair. If any of these issues have affected you today and you'd like to reach out to me, I'd love to get your message. You can email me at team@naomilight.com. And indeed, I'd love to hear your questions for subjects for future podcast episodes. But all that remains for me to say is see you next time and take very good care of each other. Bye.